Hi, Ross Britton here, Website Experience Director at Equimedia, and I'm going to introduce to you today Acquia, who are one of our great partners and of course one of the world's leading DXP platforms. Now here at Equimedia, we love to build Drupal websites. It's something we're really good at, and that of course means working with the Acquia team. Now they are uniquely positioned to give you a really great perspective on how to plan now for that cookieless future. By 2022, third-party cookies will of course become obsolete. And what you need to start doing now is planning to collect more first-party data so you can power your digital marketing decisions and your reporting through first-party data. So what I'm going to do now is hand off to the great team at Acquia to give you a run-through of their view on what the cookieless future looks like and what you can start doing within these next few weeks and months to get prepared for that cookieless future. So I'll hand off to the team now.
So Eric and I are going to talk to you a little bit today about planning for a cookieless future. We're going to kind of do this in a rapid fire question type setup. So I think without further ado, we're going to get into it. I'm going to ask Eric some questions, and he's got a couple of slides, I think, to help him answer those questions. Just in case you haven't heard of Acquia, we help people grow with their digital experiences. You can learn more about us at acquia.com. Go check it out. But Eric, cookieless future. So what's going on? What does a cookieless future mean, and how's this all come about?
Yeah, so Tom, when we think about it, there's kind of like these three separate, I guess we could call them market forces that are shifting away for marketers' everyday activities from third-party cookies, right? So the first is something that I think most folks here will be very, very familiar with in GDPR, right? So we know that there are more regulations taking place, and other cities, states, regions, countries are starting to follow suit. So in the United States, we have the California Consumer Privacy Act, and there are many more that are actually either drawn up legislation, they're in session, and they're being talked about and discussed. So there's one piece of that, which is these federal or state regulations around compliance, the way that we're allowed to protect data. Simultaneously, we have these kind of shifting customer attitudes. And it's funny, Tom, we talk about this a lot because consumers today are pretty skeptical about sharing their actual data and information when it comes to with larger brands, right? 84% are saying that they want more control over how their data is used. Almost 80% of Americans are concerned about how their data is being used by companies. But at the same time, about 80% are saying that they're actually comfortable sharing information directly with a brand if it's going to lead to some type of personalized message. So there's kind of like this exchange or agreement almost that needs to take place, which is if I'm going to give you my data, I need to know that that's being protected, of course, but also beyond that, I want to receive some type of positive benefit or interaction from you at the end result of that. And then simultaneously, we have vendors, we have organizations, leading tech companies that are starting to make decisions as well. So, we talked about Mozilla, and both Safari have stopped collecting third-party cookies. Google Chrome will follow suit later in 2021. And this is a very serious thing because it's not just coming from consumer expectations. It's not just coming from the regulation aspect, but also these tech brands, these organizations are also helping think through how we're going to manage and collect data and insights. So there's kind of these three specific areas, these market forces that are all converging in one at once. And as marketers, we're looking at things, trying to figure out exactly how to overcome and analyze and improve the customer experience without one of the ways we traditionally use to collect data.
Okay, cool. So I get why we've got there, but let's just do some super quick definitions. So I understand what a third-party cookie is, but there's more than one type of cookie, right? What other definitions do we need to think about here?
It seems like there's a new term that people are using every single day. So I won't belabor the point here too much, but I will cover off on what we just talked about, right? because I've been asked this question actually twice just this week when I was having different conversations, which is like, hey, I think I know what a cookie is, but what is a cookie? And it's really just a small piece of data. It's stored on the user's website in the web browser while they're actually browsing the website. And that's able to collect specific pieces of information about a user in an anonymous fashion. And third-party data, now this is the data that we kind of would use, like when we were collecting cookies, we were bringing together data from outside our organization and kind of bringing that in, using primarily cookies as a way to try to understand who our customers are. But what I really want to focus on is this concept of first-party data. Now, first-party data is data that is gathered by tracking and observing user behavior. It's interpreted by marketers to build out segmentation efforts, but it's a richer form of data. It is data that, access has been provided to actually take that data. It's known data. And it is, for us, as we start to think about what this cookieless future might look like, a first-party data strategy is going to be key in terms of understanding and thinking through how you're going to engage with your customers on web, on mobile, on whatever channel they might be engaging on. And that's the area that we've seen lots of organizations focus on and shift to, which is a really robust first-party data strategy.
Okay, so I'm a practitioner and thinking about the time here with my last question probably. How's this going to affect, the brand that I work for and how I think about my funnel?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting because when we think about the funnel today, it is a very traditional funnel, right? It stops at you have a lot of people in your awareness piece because you're doing lots of anonymous ads. You're trying to do ad spending. You're trying to send out lots of different messages, trying to bring in anyone you kind of can into the top of the funnel and then try to nurture them all the way down. But what is going to change a little bit here with first-party data is that the funnel structure is kind of going to fundamentally change. But I actually think, Tom, as practitioners, this is a good thing for marketers, right? Because traditionally you would have to play kind of that numbers game at the top of the funnel and bring as many people in as you could, and then kind of like hope that you were sending the right messages to get them down to that purchase or that final conversion, whatever it may be. But that extra bulk in the middle of the funnel and even at the top is really, that's extra cost for your business because the likelihood of bringing them all the way down to purchase is much lower. And in a cookieless future, the funnel was going to be essentially a little bit thinner at the top. But because those are individuals who have provided, they've kind of put in their part of that data agreement or exchange that we talk about, they're more likely with that kind of targeted approach with first-party data to actually, use things like cohorts and kind of make that funnel a little bit skinnier at the top, but much thicker at the bottom. And it's actually going to help marketers optimize their spend a little bit. And you're not going to have to deal with kind of this traditional thinning out of the funnel all the way down until you really have realized that maybe you haven't nurtured as many people as you thought through the buying process. So I think it's a good thing for marketers, although I will admit it can be a little scary.
Thanks to both Tom and Eric from Acquia for what was a really interesting talk on what that cookieless future looks like, and also some of the strategic considerations you need to bear in mind with this big third-party cookie change coming next year. Now, what I'm going to talk you through is what you can do next. So what are the actions you can start to take now in the coming weeks and months to prepare yourself for that change in the cookieless future? So one of the biggest likely changes with the cookieless feature is that your top of your funnel is going to get a lot thinner. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it means the people you're going to be speaking to are much better qualified. This means that your spend is much more likely to be well optimized, and also you can have a much better nurturing platform. If you've got a much smaller pool of potential customers, they need much better nurturing. So actually a key action you need to start thinking about right now is what your follow-up process is, what your sales process is after you get that initial lead through the door. That nurturing process that you go through once they're in the consideration phase of the buying process is actually vitally important. With that sales funnel being thinner, you need to be thinking now about what your consideration, what your decision, and what your retention activity is going to be. Specifically from a retention perspective, because actually what you want to be doing is creating advocates out of those people too. So having a robust first-party cookie strategy is also something that needs to be top of your action list. What I suggest you start doing straight away is set up a GA4 profile. Now, we've been doing quite a lot of work setting up GA4 profiles for clients and making sure that those run alongside Universal Analytics. GA4 is sort of very early in its life. So it's not quite optimized yet, but there are certain things you can start doing now to optimize your GA4 profile and start to learn how to get the most value out of it. So of course, one of the most important actions in preparation for the cookieless future is to start collecting your first party data and your customer data right now and creating your own cookie pools. To put it simply, you simply need to make your customer data count much more than it is right now. And if you get prepared right now, you're going to be in a much better place when the change comes in 2022. It's really important that you get under the skin of your current customers and also really understand who your future customers are going to be. Work on your personas, do some audience profiling, really understand who the people that are engaging with your business and buying are. One of the most important things is going to be customer experience and your website experience. Now, what you of course want to be doing is when you're driving people to your website for any reason at the moment, you want to be trying to capture their opt-ins from a first party perspective. You can start to capture those first party opt-ins, get them assigned to one of those persona cookie pools. You're going to be in a very good position when the change comes in to start using your existing customer data. Now, in terms of how that existing customer data is going to get used, it's worthwhile keeping on top of all the trends in machine learning and AI. Now, one of the things that we know going back to GA4 is that machine learning and AI is going to be very important in terms of how you target going forward. And finally, one of the things you need to start thinking about is find a first-party data platform that works for you. Now, there's going to be lots of first-party data platforms popping up all over the place. You need to find one that brings all of the data from all the different sources that you have together in order to model and target from. So if you're interested in learning more about what all those potential options are, and there are lots of actions in there, but still lots of question marks next to them for obvious reasons, if you are interested in learning more, please do get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to discuss what those options are and help you going forward.
We hope you've come out of the session knowing a bit more, but please do share any questions that you have with us using the Q&A speech bubble underneath the timeline bar below, and we'll plan on answering as many of the questions we can on our live roundtable at the end of the week. And of course, continue to join the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag #DigitalFuturesNow. Thanks, guys.